Picture this. It is a warm Saturday morning in late May. You step outside with your coffee still in your slippers, and your porch looks like something out of a magazine. Lush containers overflowing with color, soft purple mounds cascading over terracotta edges, silver foliage catching the early light, bees already working the flowers before you have even taken your first sip. And here is the thing that makes this moment truly remarkable. You did not replant a single thing this spring. Not one pot. Every single container out there came back on its own, just like it did last year, and the year before that, and the year before that. That is not luck. That is not a green thumb you were either born with or you were not. That is the specific power of growing the right perennials in containers. And today, that is exactly what we are going to cover. 15 hardy perennials that thrive in pots, come back every single year with minimal care, and look better each season than the one before. Now, before we get into the list, I want to say something that most gardening channels will never tell you directly. The reason so many gardeners feel like they are failing, the reason so many beautiful pots end up looking tired and empty by August, has almost nothing to do with skill or effort. It has to do with plant selection. Annuals are designed to give you one season of bloom and then die. That is their biological purpose. They put every ounce of energy into flowers and seeds, and when that job is done, they are done too. Every spring you go back to the garden center, spend your money, start over from zero, and the cycle repeats. Perennials work completely differently. They establish roots that deepen and strengthen every single year. They store energy underground through winter and come back in spring more vigorous, more floriferous, and more beautiful than when they went dormant. And in containers, when you choose the right varieties and set them up correctly, they become some of the most rewarding, lowest maintenance plants you can possibly grow. So let us get into it. 15 plants, everyone tested and proven, capable of delivering years of container beauty with very little asked in return. Let us start with number 1. Number 1 is sedum, and if you have ever killed a container plant by forgetting to water it, sedum is about to become your absolute best friend. This is a succulent perennial, meaning it stores water directly inside its own leaf tissue. Each thick, fleshy leaf is essentially a built-in reservoir that the plant draws from during dry periods. Documented observations from university extension programs show established sedum surviving 6 to 8 weeks of complete drought and bouncing back without permanent damage. Think about that. 6 to 8 weeks without water, and the plant comes back clean and healthy. Try that with anything else sitting on your porch right now. Here is something that surprises most new sedum growers. Rich, heavily fertilized soil is actually this plant's enemy. When you plant sedum in nutrient-dense potting mix and feed it regularly, it grows tall, floppy, and structurally weak. It leans. It falls open. It looks like it needs staking. But plant it in lean, slightly poor soil with excellent drainage, and something remarkable happens. It stays compact, colorful, and architecturally perfect from spring through winter. The neglect is not a mistake. It is the correct technique. For container growing, look for autumn fire, which produces deep copper-pink flower clusters from September through November, and holds its upright structure in pots without flopping. Dragon's blood grows low with vivid red foliage that intensifies dramatically as fall temperatures drop, giving you a plant that looks completely different and completely stunning at the end of the season compared to how it looked in May. Matrona is tall and architectural with burgundy stems and dusty pink blooms that look like something a professional designer placed there deliberately. In USDA zones 3 through 9, sedum is fully cold hardy and returns reliably every spring. Water it deeply once at planting, then back off to every 2 to 3 weeks through summer. When fall arrives, stop watering almost entirely and watch the color display it puts on as temperatures drop. Number 2 is lavender, and this one requires a specific setup to thrive in containers, but once you get that setup right, it becomes one of the most rewarding perennials you will ever grow in a pot. The mistake most people make is using standard moisture-retaining potting mix straight out of the bag. Lavender evolved on rocky Mediterranean hillsides with almost no soil nutrition and near zero moisture retention. Wet roots are lavender's primary killer in containers, and the soil most people automatically reach for is exactly the wrong choice. Here's the fix, and it is simple. Mix your standard potting mix with 1/3 coarse perlite or horticultural grit before planting. Use containers with a minimum of 3 drainage holes. Never place saucers underneath. That single change makes lavender nearly bulletproof in a pot. For varieties, Hidcote is deep purple, compact, and the most cold-hardy English variety available, surviving reliably down to Zone 5. If you are gardening in the south or along the Gulf Coast, phenomenal is your lavender. It handles heat and humidity better than any other variety and performs consistently across zones 6 through 9. If fragrance is your priority above everything else, Grosso has a higher essential oil concentration than any other variety and blooms continuously from June through August. Here is one more thing about lavender in containers that most people never think about. You can move it to exactly where you sit outside. On warm evenings, brush the foliage gently as you walk past. The oils release instantly. You have created a fragrant, naturally mosquito-repelling personal space that cost a few dollars and one 5-gallon pot. That is the kind of simple, practical magic that perennial container gardening delivers. Number 3 is catmint, specifically Walker's Low, and this is a plant that experienced gardeners quietly consider one of the best-kept secrets in the perennial world. It produces an absolute abundance of lavender blue flowers over silvery green aromatic foliage that smells wonderful the moment you brush against it. It begins blooming in late spring and continues right through midsummer. And here's the technique that most gardeners skip and then wonder why their catmint underperformed. When that first big flush of flowers starts looking tired in early July, cut the entire plant back by half. It looks severe for about 10 days. Then new growth pushes up from the base rapidly, and within 3 weeks you have a second flush of bloom that is often heavier and more vibrant than the first. 2 complete bloom cycles from one plant in one season at absolutely no additional cost. Walker's Low is drought tolerant once established, making it ideal for container gardeners who travel or simply do not want to water every single day in July. Deer tend to avoid it completely because of the aromatic foliage. Pollinators, particularly bees, are drawn to it in extraordinary numbers all season long. And from a pure design standpoint, that mounding, slightly cascading habit softens the edge of any container beautifully. In zones 3 through 8, it is fully cold-hardy and returns reliably every spring. This is a plant that earns its space in every container garden every single season. Number 4 is Russian sage, and this plant does something that almost nothing else in the container perennial world can do. It blooms continuously from July through October, 4 straight months of airy, luminous blue-purple flowers on silver-white aromatic stems. Most flowering perennials give you 4 to 6 weeks of peak color. Russian sage gives you 4 months. In a container garden, that difference is everything. Once it is established, pest pressure is essentially zero. Deer avoid it completely. The aromatic foliage naturally repels insects. And even after the blooming period ends in late fall, the silver architectural stem structure provides genuine visual interest through winter, when every other container on your street looks empty and forgotten. In zones 4 through 9, Russian sage requires exactly 1 maintenance task per year. Cut it back to 6 inches in late February or early March. That is the complete annual maintenance requirement. 30 seconds of work, and it comes back fuller and more floriferous than the season before. Here is the detail that most gardening content never mentions about Russian sage in containers. It actually looks better in a pot than it does in the ground. The contained root system encourages more compact, upright growth than open soil planting does. You are not compromising this plant by putting it in a container. You are genuinely improving it. Number 5 is hens and chicks, and this is the only container perennial on this entire list that actively tries to give you more plants without being asked. It simply multiplies on its own schedule and hands you the results for free. The mother rosette, called the hen, continuously produces smaller rosettes called chicks around its outer edge. Each chick is a genetically complete, fully independent plant that you can separate with your fingers, drop into a fresh container with minimal soil, and it establishes without any special treatment at all. The mother hen blooms once after several years and then dies, but by that point she has produced enough chicks to fill multiple containers several times over. The plant replaces itself and expands your collection simultaneously. Cobweb hens and chicks is covered in fine white threads across the rosette surface that look exactly like delicate spider webs and stop visitors in their tracks. Red beauty transitions from green to deep burgundy as temperatures drop in fall. Pacific blue ice produces blue-gray rosettes that look almost artificial in the best possible way. In USDA zones 3 through 8, hens and chicks handle hard freezes without any protection whatsoever. They evolved in alpine environments, exposed rocky ridges at high elevation with scorching summers and bitter winters and almost no soil. Your container garden, even a somewhat neglected one, is genuinely luxurious by comparison. They thrive in containers as shallow as 4 inches deep, making them perfect for windowsill gardens, wall planters, and small balconies. Number 6 is hosta, and here is something that surprises most gardeners the first time they hear it. Hostas are actually more beautiful in containers than in ground plantings. Not equally beautiful, more beautiful. Containers eliminate slugs, the primary destroyer of hosta foliage in the ground. Containers eliminate drainage problems that cause hostas to rot in poorly draining garden soil. And containers give you portability, meaning you can move them to your best display location in summer and to a protected spot before hard freeze in fall. Sum and Substance produces enormous chartreuse gold leaves up to 18 inches across that literally glow in shade like they are lit from inside. Halcyon has powder blue foliage that is naturally slug-resistant and stays clean and attractive all season without any intervention. Patriot has deep green leaves with crisp white margins that look hand-painted with extraordinary precision. In zones 3 through 9, hostas handle hard freezes reliably. In zones 3 through 5, move containers against a protected wall or into an unheated garage before the hardest freezes. A hosta in a well-managed container does not need to be replaced ever. It divides naturally every few years, giving you fresh plants at zero cost. Number 7 is coral bells, known botanically as Heuchera, and this plant does something genuinely remarkable. It provides striking container color from the moment it breaks dormancy in spring all the way through fall, and in zones 7 through 9 it stays evergreen through winter as well. And here's the thing that makes it unlike almost anything else on this list. That color comes entirely from the foliage, not from flowers. You are not waiting for bloom season. You have rich, saturated color in your containers from day one. Palace purple produces deep burgundy leaves that appear almost black in certain light, one of the most dramatic foliage effects available anywhere in container gardening. Lime Ricky is electric chartreuse that illuminates shady corners in a way nothing else can match. Caramel produces warm amber-orange tones that shift throughout the season, looking genuinely different every month from April through October. In zones 4 through 9, Heuchera is reliably cold-hardy. Most people make the mistake of placing it in deep shade and then wondering why the color fades. Heuchera produces its most intense color in bright indirect light or 2 to 3 hours of gentle morning sun. Move your containers to where they catch morning light and watch the color intensity transform within 2 weeks. Number 8 is astilbe, and when people see it in full bloom, they almost always assume it must be difficult to grow. It produces feathery plumes that look like a professional florist arrangement. That assumption is wrong. In containers, astilbe performs better than in any ground planting. In the ground, it depends entirely on whatever moisture the soil holds. In a dry summer, it struggles. In a container, you control the water and produce bigger plumes with longer bloom periods. Bridal veil produces pure white plumes that glow in shade. Fennel has deep red flowers above dark bronze foliage, one of the most dramatic color combinations in shade container gardening. Sprite is compact shell pink and has won more awards than almost any other astilbe variety in American horticulture. Number 9 is Japanese painted fern, and this plant makes people stop and ask what it is every single time. The silver and burgundy coloring on each frond looks like someone painted it by hand. It is completely natural, effortless to grow, and adds a metallic, luminous quality to any shady container that no other plant on this list can replicate. Burgundy lace has more pronounced purple tones and is the most dramatic option. Ghost is nearly pure silver in deep shade. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. Most people get one thing wrong. Do not cut the old fronds in fall. Leave them standing as natural insulation through winter, and remove them in early spring when fresh growth emerges from the base. Number 10 is coneflower, and this native plant does more for your container garden and for your local ecosystem simultaneously than almost any other single plant on this list. It blooms from June through September with minimal deadheading required. The seed heads left standing through fall and winter feed goldfinches, chickadees, and house finches, documented by the National Wildlife Federation as one of the top 5 bird-feeding native plants in America. And it self-seeds into surrounding containers, giving you free plants every season without any effort on your part. Magnus purple is the classic, with larger flower heads than the wild species and an incredibly reliable habit in containers. White swan is pure white with warm orange centers and slightly more shade-tolerant than purple varieties. Hot papaya produces double orange-red flowers and represents the most dramatically different modern coneflower variety available right now. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. In zones 7 through 9, the bloom season can extend deep into fall, giving you color well past the point when most other containers have gone quiet. Leave those seed heads standing. Every week you resist the urge to cut them down is another week of free bird feeding and another season of free new plants working its way toward your garden. Number 11 is Black-Eyed Susan. And if you want one plant that blooms from July through October, attracts goldfinches directly to your containers, gets more floriferous every single year it grows, and requires almost nothing from you after that first season, this is it. One mature Black-Eyed Susan produces between 80 and 120 simultaneous blooms at peak flowering, not over the course of the season, but at one time. The mass of golden yellow against those dark centers creates a color impact in containers that is nearly impossible to replicate with any other single plant at the same price point. Goldsturm is the benchmark variety. Award-winning, reliable, compact enough for containers, blooming continuously from July through September. Prairie Sun has yellow petals with green centers instead of dark, a fresher and more contemporary look that stands out from the standard. Cherry Brandy produces unusual copper-orange tones that set it completely apart from every other yellow flowering perennial in your container lineup. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. Here is the performance fact most people miss entirely. Black-Eyed Susan performs better in its second and third year than as a new planting. The root system strengthens over winter and produces more flowering stems each successive season. You are not just buying a plant, you are making a compounding investment in your container garden that pays dividends for years. Number 12 is Lamb's Ear, and this is the plant that gets more beautiful the less you do to it. Stachys byzantina originates from rocky, sun-baked hillsides in Turkey and Iran. The leaves are covered in dense, silver-white hairs that are not decorative. They are a biological survival system. Those hairs reflect intense sunlight to prevent the leaf from overheating. They trap a thin layer of dry air against the leaf surface to slow moisture loss dramatically. When you overwater Lamb's Ear, those hairs flatten against the leaf, trap moisture instead of air, and the plant declines from the outside in. When you underwater it, the hairs stay upright, stay silver, and the plant becomes more visually striking with every week of drought. Big Ears produces leaves up to 6 inches long, the most dramatic variety for container display, and the one that generates the most comments and questions from visitors. Helen von Stein rarely produces flowers, which means all plant energy goes directly into producing that extraordinary silver foliage. In zones 4 through 8, Lamb's Ear is fully cold hardy. Put it next to almost any other container plant, and it does something those other plants simply cannot do alone. It invites touch. People reach out and brush those leaves without even thinking about it. That tactile quality combined with the silver color makes it one of the most commented on and remembered plants in any container garden. Number 13 is daylily, and the case for growing daylilies in containers is built on one fundamental mathematical reality. Each individual flower lasts exactly 1 day. Each plant produces 30 to 50 buds per stem. The math means continuous color for months from a plant that asks for almost nothing after that first season. Blooms continuously from June through September, multiplies naturally every 3 to 4 years, and divides itself into additional plants that you separate and move into fresh containers at zero cost. Stella d'Oro is the gold standard for container growing. Compact, reblooming from spring through frost, universally reliable across American climates in zones 3 through 9. Happy Returns is pale yellow and slightly more heat-tolerant, ideal for gardeners in the South. Purple d'Oro delivers the same compact, reliable growth habit in a rich, deep purple. Each daylily clump you plant this season will be noticeably larger next season and genuinely substantial the season after that. Division every 3 to 4 years keeps them performing at their absolute peak and gives you a continuous supply of free plants to fill new containers or share with anyone who admires your garden. Number 14 is ornamental grass, specifically Karl Forster feather reed grass. And no other container plant does what ornamental grass does for the overall composition of a container garden. Movement, sound, 4-season structure, zero maintenance after that first year. Spring brings fresh green vertical structure back to your containers. Summer develops the characteristic wheat-colored feathery plumes that catch every breath of breeze and move in a way that makes your containers feel alive even on still days. Fall transitions to warm gold while seed heads feed birds actively. Winter provides standing architectural structure, the only container plant that looks genuinely intentional in January when everything else looks dormant and bare. Karl Forster stands narrow and upright at 4 to 5 feet, the most architectural container grass available, and a multiple award winner in American horticulture. Morning Light. Miscanthus has fine silver-edged leaves with graceful arching form and pink plumes in fall. Blue fescue forms compact blue-gray mounds at 10 to 12 inches, perfect for smaller containers and mixed arrangements. Cut ornamental grasses back to 4 to 6 inches in late February. That is the complete maintenance requirement for the entire year. One task, 5 minutes, and then watch it return taller and fuller than the season before. Number 15 is hellebore, and this is the plant that proves container gardening does not stop when summer ends. While every other plant on your porch is dormant or going to sleep, hellebore is producing flowers. In zones 4 through 9, it blooms from December through April, the longest single bloom period of any perennial available to American gardeners. Flowers come in white, pink, burgundy, yellow, and near black. Evergreen foliage provides 12-month container structure with thick, deeply divided, glossy leaves that look architectural and intentional year-round without any intervention from you. Ice and Roses Red produces deep burgundy flowers blooming December through March. Wedding Party has pure white double flowers blooming January through April. Penny's Pink delivers soft pink with darker veining and represents one of the most elegant hellebore varieties currently available in the American market. In zones 7 through 9, the bloom season extends even further, giving you 5 full months of winter flowers. Most gardeners spend winter looking at empty containers. Hellebore gardeners spend winter looking at flowers. That difference costs exactly the same amount of effort. Now, 3 things determine whether every plant on this list thrives or struggles in your containers, and most gardening content skips all 3. The first is drainage. Poor drainage destroys more container perennials than drought, cold, and neglect combined. Every container needs a minimum of 3 drainage holes. Add a 2-inch layer of coarse gravel at the base before adding soil. Never place saucers under drought-tolerant perennials like sedum, lavender, Russian sage, or lamb's ear. Water should drain visibly within 15 to 20 seconds of application. The second is container size. A perennial in a 10-inch container needs water every 1 to 2 days in summer. The same plant in a 16-inch container needs water every 3 to 4 days. The same plant in a 24-inch container needs water once to twice weekly. Minimum size for every plant on this list is 16 inches in diameter. In winter, size determines survival. A perennial in a small pot has almost no insulation between its roots and a hard freeze. A plant in a 24-inch container has the thermal mass to carry it through. The third is your soil mix. 50% quality potting mix, 30% coarse perlite, 20% compost. This drains well, holds enough moisture, and feeds slowly without synthetic fertilizer. Each spring, remove the top 2 inches and replace with fresh compost and slow-release granular fertilizer, 10 minutes per container once per year. The gardeners whose containers look most beautiful year after year are not working harder. They simply made better plant selections and set their containers up correctly from the start. You plant once with intention, set up correctly, and these plants do what they were built to do. They come back stronger, fuller, and more beautiful every single year without you starting over. Give this video a thumbs up if it helped, and subscribe because new content drops every week, all of it practical and zone-specific. Drop a comment telling me which 3 plants you are adding to your containers this season and what state or USDA zone you garden in. Now go fill those containers with something that comes back.